What would the Joker do if Batman was gone? Welcome to the Complete Story Series, where I take trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then, if I haven't gone insane yet, I read it dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art, I think, is owned by its respective companies. This is a classic Batman story located in Batman Legends of the Dark Knight 65 to 68. I hope you guys enjoy, but don't consider it a part of the continuity, as it's so old, it could very easily be written in and out of it rather easily. Just enjoy the story. It was another wonderful day in the safest and sweetest Gotham neighborhood, Park Ridge. Today was a special day though, as the townspeople had a passing parade. Everyone gathered on the sides of the streets to watch. They wanted to see Uncle Sam on stilts and the little monkeys with the accordions. But the best part of these parades are the clowns. Always fumbling and bumbling and dropping the balls that they're juggling. This clown though, he's the Joker. And he tells everyone, "Good gracious, look at the time. I'm gonna be late for dinner." He begins to dance away while the townspeople laugh at him. And then with a click of his watch, he sets off the bombs that were in the balls that he drops in the middle of the crowd. With the news that the Joker is around, people begin to think that they can do anything they want, which always brings out the petty criminals. But Batman is always there to stop them the moment that they rise up. After stopping a group of kids trying to rob an electronics store, Batman knows that this is going to keep happening time and time again, and time again he'll be there. Joker, knowing that the Batman is looking for him, also sets up bait to lure him out. As a woman walks into the snow, she hails a cab. The driver, however, is the Joker. And instead of taking her where she wants to go, he tells her, "I know a better place to help you loosen up and have a few laughs." They end up at an empty comedy theater watching some old comedy films. But the woman isn't laughing, is she? Joker turns to her and asks, "Why is it that my dear Councilwoman Kenner is not laughing?" He gets up and he begins to beat her for not laughing with him. Then news that the Councilwoman is missing spreads, and Batman knows no matter what, Joker will always make himself known. After what happened to Elizabeth Kenner, he's too arrogant to stay quiet. One night, Batman notices the bat signal go off, but instead of seeing a bat, he sees the Joker's face in the light. He heads over to the spotlight to find a man in a clown suit, and he can't quite tell if it's the Joker. The clown tells Batman not to move, and he begins to fire a gun at him. Batman quickly dodges the attack, and then he beats on the clown, but he quickly sees that this isn't the Joker. He should have known that. The man that he is beating is Frank Maguire, and he was there to give Batman a message and a map so that he can find the Joker. Batman follows the map, and it brings him deep into the woods, to a cabin. The Joker pokes his head out from the cabin, telling Batman, "Come on in!" And as Batman enters the cabin, Joker fires a gun at the hooded person next to him, yelling, "Surprise! It was just a blow-up doll! Best a guy like me can get on a Saturday night!" Batman demands to know where Councilwoman Kenner is, and the Joker tells him that he let her go hours ago, but it's time for him to go. He then opens up a trapdoor and he begins to fall through it, telling Batman that this was all brought to you by the good people of the Acme Exploding Cigar Company. And he disappears. Batman begins to think, exploding? And he begins to run towards the window. Moments later, the cabin explodes and outside, Joker stands over Batman's mangled body. "It worked! I can't believe it worked! Villain death traps never work!" He begins to tell Batman to get up! Get up! And he starts kicking him. But after a while, he realizes, he did it! He did it! He begins to drag Batman's body towards the river, and he tosses it in, stating, "It was a good run, but it's time for the curtains to come down on this one." Now that the Joker doesn't have an audience anymore, he doesn't want to play. So he walks outside of the comedy theater, and he presses the switch on his watch, and soon, the building begins to explode. Now that it's done, maybe it's time for the Joker to get a job. But actually, he should probably do something about his skin condition first. While he thinks he's won though, the two children run to Dr. Eagle's house to tell her that they found something. A body washed up and it's breathing. Weeks pass and Jim Gordon watches the news. Elizabeth Kenner did show back up, and she's now speaking with the police, demanding to know why they haven't done anything yet. And Gordon's looking to see if any information on Batman will pop up, because he has seemingly disappeared. Over in the town of Park Ridge though, Joker awakens from a nightmare where he sees images of bats in his Joker face. And once he's up, he tells himself, "There's nothing to worry about, Joseph. The monsters are only in my dreams." He begins to get dressed and he heads out for the day. But when he steps out into his apartment, he bumps into a woman, causing her to drop her groceries. "I'm so sorry for running into you like that. How about I help you gather those up, and I can help you put them away? It's the least I could do." After Joseph helps her put things away, the woman asks if he just moved in, and he tells her, "Yeah, a couple of weeks ago." So she introduces herself as Rebecca, and he tells her his name is Joseph Kerr. "It's nice to meet you." As time went on, Joseph and Rebecca spent a lot of time together. They watched old movies, and they listened to tapes from 40s radio shows, and they even played cards. However, one night, when shuffling the cards, Joseph sees the Joker card, and he crushes it, and he completely spaces out. Rebecca would ask if he's okay, but these episodes do happen, and every time that they do and she checks on him, Joseph tells her that he's fine. He has her in his life now. What could go wrong? Soon, the images from his nightmares would appear and they would flash and they would come back. But worse than before, he would wake up shouting that he was drowning. It was like there was something or someone inside of him trying to claw and hack their way out. Thankfully though, he would look at Rebecca and it would calm him down. And it would make him remember how good life is. Not just good, blessed. His life is blessed. Before going back to bed, Joseph decides that he's gonna go through his mail, and when looking at the name addressed to him, he starts to scribble out some of the letters. He looks at the name Joseph and he scribbles out the "sf" part, leaving only the Joe. And then he looks at his last name, Kerr, and he scribbles out the extra R, leaving Joe Kerr. The next day, the news reports that Buckner, a plastic surgeon who allegedly specialized in providing new faces for criminals, has been linked to the Joker after witness Frank McGuire claimed to have seen them together. And with that, it's presumed that the Joker is still at large. In other news, it seems that Batman may have been killed while trying to apprehend the Joker. The news then goes on to show Elizabeth Kenner confronting Jim Gordon in public, asking what are they doing, and Jim walking off telling her that he won't play her games. And in his apartment, Joseph stands up shouting, "All of this news is nothing but filth and lies! Why would you put this on the damned television?" Rebecca tells him she didn't. It was actually him when he came back from work. Doesn't he remember? He put it on to help him sleep. And Joseph begins to have flashes of the night that he beat Elizabeth Kenner, and he shouts, "I never did that!" He then raises his fist to hit Rebecca, but then stops, realizing what he was about to do, and he runs into the other room. As time would go on, Joseph would seem happier after that night, and he didn't have an episode since then. And one morning, Rebecca wakes up to see her room filled with flowers, and Joseph sitting on the end of the bed. He pulls out a ring and he asks, "Will you marry me?" And she tells him, "Yes, yes!" Back in the Batcave though, Alfred watches over things, and then he hears a voice call his name. He begins to smile when he sees the shadowy figure tell him, "I'm back." Batman wastes no time trying to find the missing Joker, but during his search, he begins to remember things. He remembers when he first woke up in Lynn Eagle's office and Lynn asking him how he was feeling. He couldn't remember things, and when he would try to stand up, the pain would force him to lay back down. Lynn explained that he had emergency surgery and he's gonna have to rest here for a while. She goes on to state that he's a real mystery man. They found his body all broken with no identification and in some weird outfit. He tries to ask where he is, and Lynn tells him that he's in the small, charming town of Accord, 200 miles north of Gotham. Quiet, maybe even dull, but it's home. It is time for some rest. She then turns on the light. Back in the current time, Batman visits Dorothy, the widowed wife of the plastic surgeon that died. He turns out the lights, telling her that he knows her husband's secrets. His life's work was creating lives for others. He was a failed plastic surgeon who helped criminals get new looks. I'm betting he helped Joker. The coroner's report says that Elias was beat up the same night that the comedy club blew up and the Joker disappeared. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? But before Batman can finish his sentence, Dorothy pushes him away and grabs a scalpel. He grabs her arm and he slams her into the bookshelf, and then he looks at her face and he tells her, "Thank you. Your eyes told me everything." And that's when he begins to have more flashbacks to his recovery in Accord. Him and Lynn would talk about many things, one of which was when Lynn used to live in Gotham for a bit and she went to medical school, but she eventually came back to Accord. Batman then sat up in the Batcave trying to train back to full strength, but after a jump he falls over. After sitting there, he then realizes something. Elizabeth Kenner said the Joker was playing old comedy films, so even though he may have changed his name and his look, he would probably need his fix. The only thing that he would need to do is look up the names at local movie rental places for those types of films. And as he begins his search, one name sticks out: Joseph Kerr. Batman begins to remove the letters of the name until he sees Joe Kerr. Soon, Batman begins to remember the final moments of his time in Accord when he set out in the yard in the middle of the night. Lynn asked him what he was doing up so late, and he told her that it was something in the air. He's not too sure, but he kind of remembers that he used to be quite a night owl. She decides to come out and tell him more about her time in Gotham. One of the nights that she was there, she was raped, and she came back home to heal. After many years, she returned to Gotham to see a musical. Afterwards, she headed back to her hotel and walked down a dark street, and then there was another man in the shadows waiting for her. This time, though, there was a second shadow, and this one wore a symbol. The bat symbol. Lynn gives Batman a package and begins to head back, and as he unwraps it, he sees the symbol that she was talking about. Back in the current time, Batman follows the lead of Joseph Kerr to his apartment. Once inside, he begins to see pictures around of Joseph, and he tells himself, the face looks right, but the eyes, they're all wrong. They look too kind, too sane. The door behind him begins to creak open, and Batman turns around and throws the man into a wall to discover that it's the supervisor of the building, and he explains that Joseph and Rebecca, the owners of this apartment, went on vacation to Pennsylvania to get married. He then continues to try and explain, but Batman's already left. It didn't take long for Batman to find Joker holding Elizabeth Kenner hostage once again with a violin and a knife in his hands. Joker tells him, "I'm glad you came back. I even called the cops on myself this time." And Batman says, "You got what you wanted. I'm here. You can let Elizabeth go." "Let the girl of my dreams go? I think not. In fact, I think we should go get married." He then points the violin at Batman and he tells him, "But first, let's begin with the musical. Lovin' Boom!" The violin fires a rocket, causing Batman to jump out of the way, and soon the Joker turns on his jetpack and he begins to fly off. Batman throws a batarang around the Joker's legs to follow, but the Joker just cuts it off, causing Batman to fall. He quickly continues to glide over to keep up the chase with the Joker, but the question is, how did the Joker come back? When Joseph and Rebecca reached Pennsylvania, Joseph continued to dance around, excited that the two of them are finally getting married, and Rebecca tells him, "You're crazy, totally crazy." She grabs a hold of Joseph and she tells him to stop, and he tells her, "I'm just having a little fun. So how about we go walk in the rain for a little bit?" The two of them walk and they come across a small river, stopping them from going any further. Joseph tells her, "I know there's a footbridge around here. Let me find it on the map." He reaches for the map, and when he pulls it out, he sees the newspaper instead, and what he sees is a picture of Batman and the headliner reading, "He's back." Joseph looks at Rebecca and he tells her, "I love you with all of my heart and soul. Please, never forget that." He then pulls out the map again and he tells her, "Wait here. I'm gonna go make sure the bridge nearby is safe." Down the river, Joseph begins to sulk. "No matter how hard I try to forget, Batman is always there." Then he begins to see images of Batman reaching out of the river, and current day Batman is now speeding after him on the water in a boat. Soon, Joseph jumps into the water and he begins to resurface, and as he does, his face begins to change and the face begins to fade and become lighter, and he says, "Now that I'm back, I've gotta get back to work." In the present time though, Batman catches up with the Joker on his speedboat and he tells Joker, "It's me that you want. Kendra is a pawn. Give her up." Joker tells him, "No, I would never." But as the light begins to shine down on him, he sees Elizabeth's face begin to change, and then it looks like Rebecca's. "Fine, I'll let her go." And the helicopter flies down to pick her up. Once she's gone, Joker taunts Batman, stating that the only thing he needs to do is jump into the bay right now and Batman will never find him. But Batman tells him no, because he'll just find a way to come back. His kind always does, and that's why it needs to end here. Joker pulls out a watch, telling him, "That just makes you as crazy as me then." And he pushes a button. Batman remembers back to the explosion last time he pressed that button, and then he sees the Joker begin to jet away again. He quickly jumps up, grabbing the Joker by the legs, and the Joker shouts, "You're supposed to stay down there and die, bats!" As the two of them go up, the jetpack begins to sputter, and the Joker remembers that he may have forgotten to refill the tank. The two of them then fall back down towards the boat, and the boat explodes under the water. Batman swims and finds the Joker's body, and he sees that he's not really dead either. After grabbing him, Batman swims back up to the surface, and soon a helicopter flies by to pick him up. Back in Park Ridge, Rebecca sits and she stares at a picture of Joseph. The trooper said that Joseph had gone missing and was presumed drowned in the waters where they were staying. She sits and she prays that he is safe, because she knows one day her beloved Joseph will return to her. Over in Accord though, Lynn wakes up one morning to see a flower sitting on her table, and when she opens the card, she smiles as she sees the bat symbol. Outside, Batman watches, because while he was here, he got to rediscover a part of himself that existed before his parents were murdered. He also knows he can never set foot in Accord again. No matter what chaos may suck him down, he knows because of Lynn, he will always rise up time and time again, whole and sane. It's such an interesting story to see what the Joker would do without Batman, and I really feel bad for Rebecca, but luckily he didn't go crazy and kill her or anything like that. Trust me, when I was reading this, I was expecting that to happen at any moment. Let me know what you thought of this story in the comments down below, and if you like these older classic Batman stories, I know a lot of you guys have said you do, don't worry, but we are looking for them. We're looking for some good ones to bring you. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Comicstorian, and I'll see you next time right here.